问一下那个滕华睿教授，因为我就看到他是作为一个历史学家，他也对藏传佛教和藏地的文化很重视。我昨天在哥伦比亚大学也看到很多教授也是对藏文化就是非常重视。我问的问题呢，第一个是你们哥伦比亚大学就是对藏传这个文化、藏传佛教的研究，或者是就是怎么样，就是这大学的情况。然后第二个问题，你这么多年以来，就是为什么这么重视专注藏传文化？
So, to get to the question about Colombia, I mean, I think it's very different, not just from Chinese institutions that do research, but also from a German or a European model, where there can be a sort of research project in Europe or China. In America, it's much more, I guess, fitting with our approach. We all pursue our own interests, and so, of course, the main thing that's different about Colombia is the interest in modern Tibet, and that is something that is I think, widespread across the university. I think we have 8 people at Columbia teaching something about Tibetan culture right now, and those on the religion side, Bob Thurman and his students, tend to study Tibetan Buddhism across time. A lot of interest in translating, for instance, translating the complete Tibetan canon into English, which is a monumental task and one that I really admire them pursuing. But I guess on the modern side, we are really interested in the last 300-400 years in Tibetan history and the kind of changes, developments that have taken place in that time. So I think that's something that's really unique about Columbia University. So for my own interest, I think it's probably very similar to the kind of students that you've had come from China, kind of an intellectual interest in the beginning, a personal interest. I had the good fortune to grow up at a time when there was a lot of exchange, a lot of debates about the situation in Tibet. I'd studied Chinese first. I think that's maybe unusual. A lot of the scholars in America have gone to Tibet first, or gone into exile and met Tibetan lamas in Nepal or in India. My own experience was studying Chinese and then learning about Tibetan Buddhism. And I thought that the debate that was being sort of waged in the media and in the kind of campaign that was going on in America was a little clearly one-sided. And as I traveled to China and made my way to Tibet, I realized there was a different narrative there. And so quite aside from my personal interest, I became interested in the history of relationships. It seemed so negative, sort of China versus Tibet at that time. And as I explored the history in the early 20th century, I realized that Chinese and Tibetans were able to work together, and there could be sort of positive outcomes. And so I wanted to tell that narrative and bring that light to that past history of successful encounters. And I think since that time now I'm moving back, looking at the Qing dynasty and seeing that connection go even farther back in time. And I guess I look to the past with hope to the future. Okay, now I'd like to invite McHenry, who has been our gracious host here at the Rubin Museum of Art. Thank you for that, and you have a few words for us.
Well, yes, there are many thanks due to putting this program together, and not least, of course, Professor Gray Tuttle, who expertly guided us through these many questions that we've all been burning to ask ourselves, but he put them much more eloquently than we could. And lastly, but of course foremost, we want to thank Kempo. As I say, this is a place of scholarship, and we would like to honor your scholarship, Kempo, with some catalogues from the museum that were created specially for the exhibitions that we've mounted, and I hope you'll accept them on the behalf of the Rubin. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Very good. Thank you.